infiltrates this
Infiltrates. He's
oh,
you.
sorry. So in, I don't know how I
She
said it, but okay,
infiltrates.
infiltrates. And infiltrates. She,
she
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 infiltrates. Now that's all I can think of now.
penetrates. Makes her
Okay,
way
so
into. Hey everyone, it's Elliot.
and Todd, welcome to Two Designers Walk Into a Bar, an ongoing conversation about pop culture and iconic design. Today we're jumping back into the world of film, but this time we're focusing on a genre.
And not just any genre, but one that touches on action, civil rights, and empowerment.
Plus crime, martial arts, westerns, horror, comedy, prison, musicals.
Ha! And of course, the man.
Today we're traveling back in time to talk about Blaxploitation and a couple of iconic films from the era, Foxy Brown and Superfly.
We'll also be talking about the artists who helped sell the films by making the posters as colorful, funky, and over the top as the movies themselves.
That's right, so order up a couple of high-octane shots.
Woo! It's about to be action-packed as we jump back into the game,
Yes.
right here in the bar.
I'm excited about this.
So, Todd, as we jump in today, I think
Yep.
we need to give credit where credit is due. This was actually not
Absolutely.
our idea.
Absolutely.
So, believe it or not, dear listeners, every so often Todd and I get invited to do a speaking gig of one sort or
Yeah.
another. And
Yes.
one of the things we love to do is shape young minds. Isn't that right?
Shape, yeah. Okay, you can say that word, I guess.
Warp.
There you go. That's shaping, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a type of shaping. But anyway, we recently went to a portfolio review here in our home state of North Carolina over at Guilford Technical Community College. Met a lot of great kids.
Yes.
Not really kids. I mean, they're adults. Sorry, folks, if for all of the true under 18 listeners we have, we apologize to our over 18 listeners. But
I'm sure we'll cut
yeah,
all that out.
that'll be gone in edit. But anyway, one of these students was a woman named Tori Thomas, and she suggested this topic that we should cover blaxploitation film posters. And Todd, for listeners who have been following us for a while,
Yes.
I believe on this podcast, I know we've talked about it privately, but I think on this podcast I've talked about my love of Tubi.
Yeah, I love it as well.
And Tubi, among the many, many reasons to watch it, it has a great, I don't even know if you'd call it an algorithm. I'm not sure what you would call it. There's someone locked in a room somewhere at Tubi headquarters, and this person knows how to organize movies into amazing
Yeah.
categories.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
one of those categories, I think Tubi calls it what, maybe black cinema or something like that?
Yeah, black cinema.
Black cinema, now that's a very wide gamut, I think, because that really, I mean, that could be a movie that came out last week to a movie that came out 50 years ago.
Sure.
But
Sure.
within black cinema, there is a subgenre or genre or subcat, I don't know, genus, phylum, kingdom, however it is scientifically we organize movies that I absolutely love, and I'm not the only one, and it's blaxploitation. And the reason I love it is simply because it is so farcical and over the top, and it is hilarious. And it, just like kung fu movies or any of this other stuff, it always has a cult following because of all the tropes, all the stereotypes, and just everything being so exaggerated you can't help but laugh at it, right?
Yeah, true. And that's about half the story, though, isn't it, Elliot? Because the other half of that is It gave black actors in the early mid 70s a lot of work. It exposed
Oh, yeah.
black actors to other directors and producers. Now, it was exploitation. There were plenty of exploitation pictures back then, as you said. Walking Tall, like the millions of martial arts films,
Mm-hmm.
all those,
Mm-hmm.
The Legend of Buggy Creek, like all that was, they were low budget movies,
Yeah.
and there's a reason for that. And I'll do a quick little overview in just a second, but I wanted to just mention like Blaxploitation. Some people would say it's a controversial title.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, black
Mm-hmm.
cinema covers a wide berth, but we are talking about that period of the 70s
Yes.
and when it emerged, and it was designed and targeted to urban black audiences. And it was at the time when, unfortunately, black actors were in stereotypical roles, but this presented them as heroes in lots of cases. It also employed a lot more black actors than your regular mainstream movies were doing at the time.
And black crew, right? Even people
Oh, yeah,
off
of course,
camera
yeah.
as well. Okay, Todd, so how did you... I mean, you're older than I am. As listeners know, you're 10 years older than I am. So this was just as Blaxploitation was being born. Coincidentally, I was also being born. So naturally, I found this really when I was in, high school, college.
Right.
So by the time I found it, it was tongue firmly planted in cheek. Everybody was in on the joke,
Sure.
And again, this was sort of being thrown together with these kung fu films. There'd be midnight screenings and film festivals and this kind of jazz. But how did you find it?
Well, you're right. I was a kid, of course, when this was coming out, so I probably didn't get the significance of the films, but I got into it because of the music. Because Elliot, and probably our listeners know, I love funk, soul, R&B.
You do.
I mean, it is deep inside of me. So when you think about these types of black cinema from the 70s, music was a giant part of that. So I learned about them from the music. Like, think Shaft, right? Shut your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Car Wash, really? Is there a better song, right?
Rolls Royce, right?
Yes, Freddy's Dead, and
yep.
Superfly, which you're going to talk a little bit about in a second. And of course, The Godfather, Get Up Off of That Thing from Slaughter's big ripoff. Like, there's so many of these movies I would never have been exposed to if it wasn't for the music. And a guy named Willie Hutch did plenty of music of the time, and he did Foxy Brown, and he did not disappoint. It's got all the great wah-wah, the movable stuff. It's awesome.
So when we're talking about stereotypes, in some ways these movies reinforce stereotypes, in other ways it broke stereotypes, but like we talked about, it provided more opportunities for black actors and filmmakers and stories, right? Like you said, it was a urban black audience. So these were stories that weren't mainstream.
Yeah.
Certainly not in the early 70s.
That's what was attractive to, me as I was turning into a teenager, young adult. You couldn't find these stories in mainstream.
So you just loved it. You loved that you sort of like come for the music, stay for the story kind of thing, just because it was different.
I mean, it's just very different. Yeah, it's just very different. And yeah, absolutely. And what I learned is, you touched on this a moment ago, these exploitation pictures, they were part of a large trend of low-budget films from Hollywood at that time, and they were designed to revitalize the struggling film industry because TV was kicking at the time, and, Hollywood costs more to make a movie, so they were putting out more things that might appeal to different audiences. So, it was part of a bigger Hollywood strategy, if you will, to create more low-budget stuff. And, we talked about it a second ago. It can be controversial. Some people do see it as more exploitation. Some people see it as revolutionary because it puts strong, stylish, and let's just, call it what it is, unapologetically black protagonists right front and center of each movie.
Yeah, I won't disagree with that. And men and women. Like, it wasn't even just black men, right? So,
right.
Foxy Brown, which you're going to talk about, I mean, that put Pam Grier front and center. Pam Grier, Todd, Winston-Salem native Pam Grier, I might add.
I did not know that.
Yes, she is from North Carolina.
I didn't. I loved her without even knowing that. But yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about Foxy Brown. First of all, the plot. Foxy Brown, played by the beautiful Pam Grier from North Carolina, she is seeking revenge after her undercover government agent boyfriend is murdered by this Italian drug syndicate.
That's always what happens.
I know. So she gets into this corrupt, I'm doing air quotes, modeling agency that's used to actually exploit women and service politicians. Yet they're prostitutes. So she's going in and posing as a prostitute to expose this operation. So one of the things about this type of cinema and Mexican cinema, which is similar too, is, it gets pretty gritty. So Foxy is drugged, she's raped, she's imprisoned, but she escapes using a hidden razor, and she burns down the drug farm from the Italian drug syndicate.
Wow.
And then she enlists help from this Black Panther style group. Anyway, the climax of the movie includes this gruesome castration of the bad guy and her confronting her other villains. So, all of that in about 90 minutes or so. It's the themes of justice and vengeance and female empowerment. And it was reflecting the deeper societal struggles of the time, too. And Pam Grier even said, for her, it was a way to push how women of color are portrayed. So, good on her. And she did. She was kind of the queen of this genre.
Oh, yeah.
She appeared in multiple ones, and she was not shy about being a badass, as a matter of fact.
All right, Todd, this all sounds great. There is a lot going on in this movie. So how do you capture that visually to get people to want to buy a ticket and go see it?
Yes. Such a good problem to have. So the poster, which I gotta come clean, man.
Okay.
I struggled to find just one movie to talk about because it was a lot, and the posters are a visual feast. And so Foxy Brown, like a lot of the posters of the time, there's a large hero image of Pam Grier, Foxy Brown, and then smaller vignettes happening. And you'll see this happening in a lot of the other posters of that period, where there are illustrated scenes from the movies. And let me just read what the poster says, because I think it sums it up. It says,
I want to hear
"Don't
this.
mess." Okay, all right. So it says, "Don't mess around with Foxy Brown. She's the meanest chick in town." How about that?
Okay.
If that hasn't sold you yet, below that is the subline. "She's brown sugar and spice, and if you don't treat her nice, she'll put you on ice." So
that's great.
Yeah, remember that testicle thing I was telling you about? That ends up in the movie. So she definitely shows, she's mean and she will put you on ice.
But she's still sexy, though.
And she's doing it all for the right reasons.
That's
and
right.
The hero image of her is she's wearing this bright lime green dress, and she's very sexy, and she's got a little gun hidden away. But like other Blaxploitation posters of the time, this served as really the main form of advertising because it could be super bold. They didn't have giant media budgets. Right. They weren't putting TV ads out there. But, it was kind of styled a little like James Bond, so it's clear she's the hero. Mm-hmm. And the design, it really highlights the film's rawness and humor. And it's got plenty of scenes of girl-on-girl fisticuffs. Let's just say that.
Yes, there is a lot going on.
It's a lot of Jackie Brown whooping some ass is what she's doing.
But there's I don't even know what you would is she in every one of these sequences? Because I'm looking at the poster.
Like she
is.
And
then
there's a couple where she may
and then there's some thugs on the left-hand side of the poster. So but yeah, she's it's a lot of cat fights going on in this thing.
She is kicking some butt and looking great while doing it.
Darn right.
And I'm going to say the logo is really beautiful. It's got these swirls coming off as sort of a thick and thin serif, but these little accentuated things that come off of it. I mean, I think it's really well done. It's not clunky at all. It's beautiful. So well done, in fact, that Quentin Tarantino pretty much lifted it directly for his movie, Jackie Brown.
Yep.
If you've seen the logo for Jackie Brown, you've seen the logo for Foxy Brown. And Quentin Tarantino has said, actually, this is one of his most favorite movies. So I can imagine.
Why. I mean, it almost looks like lettering that would have been done for a book cover during that time.
It does, and it was probably, a mixture of phototype and hand done, but it actually, it's pretty nice, and it does represent the period, I think, really well. The whole poster, the whole movie, it's that 70s aesthetic, it's bright colors, it's Afrocentric fashion, bold music, like I said, and it fused politics and pop culture and pulp action and revenge fantasy. So, like a lot of the movies of this period, it celebrated outrageousness, over-the-top villains and stylized violence, and of course, the audacious female leads. So it was a really important movie of the time because in 1970s America, fair amount of racial tension.
Yeah.
The feminist movement was awakening, and sort of distrust in institutions was there. So this was a way to really, stick it back to the man. And
this was in the era of Vietnam, Watergate, all this sort of stuff that was bubbling up in the New York. It was on fire at the time. I mean, there were a lot of things to be skeptical about. That's for sure.
It is. And, it was a good time for empowerment for people that had not been empowered. But you know how I love a pop culture thread. So let me talk a little bit about one here. I already mentioned the Quentin Tarantino reference, which is pretty obvious. The director, Foxy Brown, a guy named Jack Hill, he was a classmate of Francis Ford Coppola's. And he actually, Jack Hill, created a student film when they were in school together called The Host, which influenced Apocalypse Now a little bit later on. And he had actually done a movie before Foxy Brown with Pam Grier called Coffee. And this one was supposed to be the sequel, but it never did quite play out like that. The production company that's behind a lot of these, American International Picture.
I love that. We got it covered domestically and around the world.
Right. Well, anyway, they decided it should not be a direct sequel. But again, there's a little thread here.
Okay.
In one of the scenes, when Foxy's talking to someone, there's a Shaft poster in the background. And so I love that. But let's talk just for a second, because I want to hear more about Superfly. Let's talk for a second about the societal impact here. I think we've said it enough. Pam Grier, she became an icon of feminism and Black power. She portrayed this strong woman who fought back and protected her community, and it directly spoke to the women's empowerment movement, and it challenged victimhood and subjugation. So, she, good on her, right? Despite it being controversial now, it really did redefine African-American womanhood, pushing past these narrow ideals of what their roles could be, what beauty was, what power was. So, all I'm going to say, Foxy with a gun in one hand and a glamorous outfit on, it became the symbol of female power. So, good on you, Foxy Brown, and it gave voice and presence to the Black community, as we had already talked about.
Yeah, so Todd, as we talked about at the top of this episode, it really also gave a voice and a screen presence to Black communities, both in front of and behind the camera, with the plots we talked about. And it really inspired future generations of actors, actresses, creators of all stripes, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I think we can agree you picked, without question, a very, very influential film and poster.
Yeah, thanks. Some of the lines in the film are so good. She'll put you on ice. I love it.
You know, speaking of putting things on ice, I could use another round on the rocks myself.
I think pretty soon the only thing left that's going to be frozen is my bank account. We'll be right back. Hi. We want to take a moment to mention that if you're enjoying this episode, we have an archive of topics ranging from the Olympics to movie posters,
Think Ghostbusters,
iconic images,
think Bigfoot,
punk music,
the Ramones,
Saturday morning cartoons,
the Pink Panther,
and failed products like OK Soda. Visit our website at twodesignerswalkintoabar.com for full episode notes and visuals, the latest blog content, and to sign up for our newsletter.
Follow us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Find the links on our website or search using the phrase "Two Designers Walk Into a Bar."
Most importantly, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people like you find podcasts like this.
And tell a friend about us. Send them a link to our podcast from your listening platform of choice.
And if you're inclined, buy our merchandise. Stickers, coasters, magnets, t-shirts. We're designers. We make good stuff, and it helps support the show.
Get in touch. Use the contact form on our website or send an email to hello@twodesignerswalkintoabar.com.
We read every message we get. Honest.
And we're available for speaking gigs. Email us to learn more.
Okay, now, back to the bar. All right. Welcome back, and it looks like, Elliot, my credit card still works for one more transaction.
All right.
I know. Well, so let's make the most of it, right?
Absolutely.
So, oh, did I say that out loud? Let's talk about Superfly instead. I just talked a little bit about Foxy Brown, and we talked a little bit about the introduction of this type of black cinema from the 70s. And I got to tell you, Superfly, the poster, epic, the songs, epic.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it. This really is it.
Yeah. So Foxy Brown came out when? 74, I think?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Superfly came out a couple years earlier in 72.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who might not be aware of the film, like you've never actually seen it or you're aware of it just as something that exists, or maybe you're aware of it musically, let me just quickly get into the plot here really quickly. So Superfly follows young blood priest, who is a stylish and successful cocaine dealer in Harlem who dreams of leaving the drug trade behind, Todd, because he's looking for a better life. Okay?
That sounds familiar.
It does. This is really breaking new ground in cinema. It's never been done before.
Yeah.
So he devises a plan to make one final big score. In this case, buying 30 kilos of cocaine, and he's going to net $1 million and he's going to retire. Now, $1 million 50 years ago was not $1 million today, so it was a much more meaningful amount of money.
Yeah, but 30 kilos of cocaine was still 30 kilos of cocaine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, that's what led to the 80s.
Oh, right.
This is
That's
the
what
70s.
fueled the 80s,
yeah.
wasn't it?
So as Priest navigates threats from corrupt cops, betrayal from within his own crew, Todd, and a dangerous entanglement with powerful police commissioner, because, the man.
Yeah.
He ultimately outsmarts them all, and in one bold final move, he secures his freedom by leveraging a contract on the commissioner's life, and he walks away from the game on his own terms.
Yes.
All right.
You go.
So he
you
played
go, young
everybody.
Priest.
Yeah, and he
Yes.
won. Okay. So I really want to talk about for a moment why this film is iconic, and it really builds on a lot of the things that you were talking about in the first half of this episode. But let me add a few more. So the director was this guy named Gordon Parks Jr. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because his dad, Gordon Parks Sr., is the one who directed Shaft. The movie,
Stop
the
it. Really?
movie you just mentioned right before we went into the break.
Shut your mouth.
I'm just talking about Shaft.
And you can dig it.
And in its apparent glorification of a drug dealer, right? This wasn't a good person who was the lead character. Superfly is one of the more controversial films within the Blaxploitation genre. So there's really this uncomfortable romanticism of criminality. And Ron O'Neal, who is the lead actor in this film, he plays Priest really with this somber presence, right? As we talked about, this cocaine king looking to go straight. But there is more to it than this. So talking about people who were given opportunities off camera, Superfly was also the first major film that was distributed and financed chiefly by Black limited partnerships.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of these partnerships were actually resident in Harlem, where the film was set.
Oh, wow.
And it was also the first to employ a largely non-white technical crew. So really it was sort of, if you think about it, FUBU before FUBU, right? It's like for us, by us. It's shot in this urban setting, financed by people who lived in this setting and were working in this setting, to be seen by more people in the same setting, right?
Yeah.
All right. But I feel I need to talk about the poster because, again, I've outlined the plot, but how do we get butts in seats?
Yeah.
And I want to go back to something I mentioned with the typography with Foxy Brown. I feel that the poster layout I'm about to describe does feel like a book cover. Like in my mind, if you were to strip off the film credit lines at the bottom and you were to put this on a sort of pulp paperback book and stick it in a bookstore in the 70s, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is totally just some gritty dime store kind of sensationalized fiction, right? And I think that was on purpose. So as we talked about, Priest, the main character, the black drug dealer, he was this character who normally, if you think about mainstream cinema, mainstream media, he'd be a villain.
Yeah.
And he'd probably be a bit character in some larger, he'd be like Thug Number 2 or something like this.
Right.
He would be background. But in this case, he's center stage. He has this flashy outfit. He has a luxury car with a sexy woman reclining on it. And the Harlem skyline is in the background. And then sort of like the Foxy Brown poster, but not quite as up close, there are a bunch of people getting in punch-ups in the background as well. So there's a little bit of scuffling going on. So there is a promise of a lot of shit going down in this film.
Yeah, that's true. And it pulls you in.
It piques your curiosity for sure. Like I remember... I probably first saw this artwork maybe in high school, I would say, if I had to guess. Now, kids, this was pre-internet, so I don't remember how. I might have even seen the record album. I might have seen the soundtrack.
Right.
Regardless, I knew this was going to be something special. So the colors in the illustration and the amazing hand-lettered title are all in these pinks, reds, and purples. And it's really harmonious and works well. So it's very heroic, but it's also in some ways very poetic and very, very moody. I think I'll use that word. It's definitely, it's got a tone to it, and it sets an expectation about the film.
I'm going to jump in and say, and this is a funny word to use for what people may think of this genre, but This is actually pretty elegant.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The way, I mean, the hand done typography is beautiful. Of course, you can see these on our website. I know you got to talk more about the illustration. I'm an illustrator, and I absolutely adore everything about
The
this.
exaggerated perspective.
Yeah, and I mean the Superfly's right foot, which is the most foreground thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
that is so beautifully drawn. But anyway, I think it's really elegant.
His coat flapping in the wind, at the
Yeah,
bottom.
yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of love and attention to detail given with this illustration. So let's dig in and talk just a little bit more about it. And you mentioned several things. There's this flamboyant clothing, and it reflected trends at the time and influenced, of course, what would become a cohesive sort of, I don't know, I guess you could say like an urban fashion aesthetic a little bit. It sort of predicted trends and reinforced trends at the same time. So I think that's pretty interesting. But it was also overly aspirational, like we talked about. You got the woman, you got the car, you got the great wardrobe.
Right.
This is like what you talked about earlier with Foxy Brown. It's a very aspirational thing. You have beauty, you have power, you have elegance, all these things put together in a very quick to read illustration. And with the poster layout, the bottom right corner has this inset image of Curtis Mayfield in black and white with a subtle pink background tint, and he's the one who did the soundtrack.
Yes.
And I love the fact that the designer, who we'll talk about in just a moment, used that subtle background tint to tie that inset photo to the illustration.
Yeah.
I thought that was such a great trick.
Yeah.
So, as you talked about, the way you became aware of this genre of films was through the music. And so the soundtracks were just as interesting to moviegoers as the films themselves, right?
Yes, yeah.
So that's how a lot of these films were remembered or discovered for people our age or younger than us, was really through the music.
Yeah, they were advertised through radio stations, they were playing these songs. So yeah, the music was just great for most of them.
And what was really cool about it, if you think about the contrast with this movie, it was glamorous, yet it was gritty. That was a word you'd use with Foxy Brown, because it's this gangster tale, but it's undermined by this score from Curtis Mayfield, and it kind of serves as a Greek chorus in a way, because it's narrating what's going on in the movie, things like Freddy's dead and all this stuff. And the album art, and we'll put this on our episode page as well, the artwork for the soundtrack for Curtis Mayfield's album, it actually flips the narrative, and Mayfield is the hero, and O'Neill is cross-armed, holding a gun, and he's standing astride this reclining woman, and the same title lettering is on both.
Oh, okay.
But it's very obvious that Mayfield is the hero in terms of when you're in the record store grabbing the vinyl.
For the album, yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
At the time, Curtis Mayfield was known, so
definitely.
He was a big deal. He was actually lending a fair amount of credibility by doing the music to this.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think it was sort of this 1-2 combination, right? It's like if the poster doesn't intrigue you or the plot doesn't intrigue you or whatever, the endorsement of Curtis Mayfield, you'll, to your point, Todd, you'll want to at least sit there for 90 minutes and listen to great music.
Right,
so that's going to get
exactly.
you in the theater. And sort of the cherry on this sundae, at the top of this poster in just bold sans serif type, there's 2 phrases, which I think are great. First sentence, "Never a dude like this one!" !
Yes.
And then the second one, "He's got a plan to stick it to the man."
Oh yeah,
I love
you go
it. It's
Superfly.
So great. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So where did all of this come from? This was such a wonderful combination. And it really boils down to the contributions from 3 different guys. And all of these folks, geez, if we had more time, Todd, I really think each of the following people I'm about to mention, they each deserve their own episode because they're all incredible. And two of the three people I'm going to mention, the first two are actually still alive.
Oh, okay.
So we had a guy named Tom Young, Jung. He was the designer of this poster. We have a guy named Robert Tannenbaum, and he was the illustrator of this poster. And then we had, you may not have heard of those first two, but I guarantee you've heard of the third guy, Ed Benguiat, and he was the letterer, the Superfly letterer.
Legend.
Yes. All right. So what are the bona fides of each of these guys?
Yeah, really.
So let's start with Tom Young, so the designer. He was Chinese American. He was born in 1929, so he's not young, Todd. And he created some of the most celebrated movie posters of all time, including those for Dr. Zhivago.
Whoa.
And here is where a pop culture thread comes weaving once again. He designed the poster for Apocalypse Now.
Oh.
Okay. And
hey, you want me? Can I blow your mind?
Okay.
Can I blow your mind
all
real
right,
quick?
hit me.
Okay.
Hit me.
Do you remember the director's name that I mentioned from Foxy Brown? His name was Jack Hill.
I do. Okay.
You might see his name as part of the orchestra that did the music for Dr. Zhivago. How about
That's
that?
crazy.
He was a musician.
Okay. Whoa.
Anyway,
So he was a musician, then he's like, I'm just going to
enjoy that.
take a swing and direct this film?
Yeah, he's like, well, I got sort of pulled into doing directing. What are you going to do?
Okay. Well, I guess if you're
Anyway.
a conductor, you're directing music. I don't know. Whatever.
He was not a conductor.
He was just some
he was like a
dude.
celloist or something.
Well, I don't know. I'm trying
Anyway,
to rationalize.
I thought you would
this a little
enjoy it.
bit.
I don't want to derail you, but I thought you would enjoy that thread.
You can't make this stuff up, folks.
No.
Okay.
No.
And Todd, have you ever heard of a movie called Star Wars?
Star Wars sounds familiar, like Cowboys in Space.
Sort of, something like that. Space opera
Okay,
kind of
yeah.
thing. Blew up a couple planets. One was organic. The other one was mechanical. Yeah, anyway.
I got it.
So he designed versions of the original Star Wars trilogy posters in 77, 80, and 83.
Yeah.
But like I said, I am simply scratching the surface. There's so much more to this guy's story. We might have to have an episode about him at some point.
And the illustrator. I want to hear
Yes.
about this.
So
guy.
let's get to Robert Tannenbaum. Okay, so he has had a 60-plus year career in the arts. This guy moves to L.A. in 1964 to pursue paintings for advertising. So, folks, this was well before Photoshop, and you had to commission illustrators to do a lot of your artwork. But he also wanted to create movie posters, which was one of the reasons he went to L.A., for some of the biggest studios, because that's where those studios were. Right? So end up in the backyard, you're probably going to get some work. But his range of artistic styles meant he did work for a variety of genres, narratives, and studios. Okay, so buckle up, Todd. I'm about to mention some of the more than 250 movies he did poster artwork for.
Holy cow.
Okay, Cujo.
Oh, yeah,
A Christmas Story, which in my opinion is the best Christmas movie.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Battlestar Galactica. The Color of Money, and last but not least, of course, Superfly.
So he said 250.
250. Wow. That's bonkers, isn't it?
Wow.
He really must have been just a great salesman, just to get his artwork sold, just to have it appear on this many posters without losing his mind.
Yeah,
I mean, imagine all the, hey, that's great, but could you try this and could you do that?
Yeah.
And this was, again, before digital art, right? This is when you're airbrushing, watercoloring, gouaching, whatever you're doing. So it wasn't just like, oh, yeah, I'll have that for you in 5 minutes.
You were working around the clock then.
Yeah, you were losing your mind. So the most recurring commentary he received, and he took this as a compliment, actually, when he would go and do signings of some of the posters, like when he was going to shows, was, I had no idea you did that. So because his styles were so adaptable, the fans of these different movies were so shocked that he had such a diverse portfolio with all these different films. Last but not least, let's talk about our friend Ed Benguiat, who was the letterer for Superfly. We totally need to do an episode on this guy, Todd. So write this down.
All right.
Write it on the back of that coaster in front of you.
Writing it down.
Okay. So our friend Ed was an American type designer, lettering artist. He died in 2020, but he had a long life. He was born back in 1927, so he didn't die that long ago.
Uh-huh.
So 250 posters, that's laudable. But Benguiat designed over 600 typefaces.
Whoa.
Including ones like Tiffany, Bookman, Souvenir, Edwardian Script, and the eponymous Benguiat and Benguiat Gothic. We'll return to Benguiat in just a moment because I guarantee you people know what that is, even if they don't know, they know. And I'll explain why.
Yeah, but I mean, those are typefaces, Elliot. Did he do anything that people might recognize? Any logos or anything?
All right, Todd, let's see if you've heard of any of these. Because, yes, as luck would have it, he did designs of original logos or redesigns of existing logos for fly-by-night outfits like Esquire magazine, the New York Times, Playboy, McCall's, Reader's Digest, Photography, Look, Sports Illustrated, Star Ledger, San Diego Tribune, AT&T, A&E, Coke, Estee Lauder, Ford, and countless others.
Wow.
So, okay, Todd, buckle up. This is where the thread comes right through, and I think becomes one of your heartstrings. All right? Are you ready?
Okay.
So if funk music was not enough for you,
yes,
this is the guy who created the original logo for Planet of the Apes.
Shut up. Is it really? I didn't know
I'll
that.
lie to you about a lot of things, but I would never lie to you
Planet
about
of the
that
Apes.
because I know your Achilles heel.
You got that right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we got to do an episode on Ed.
And then
so just his logo.
Yeah. And then Guns of Navarone is another great one. And then of course Superfly. Yeah. Okay. So why did I mention Benguiat earlier and say that everybody should know what it is?
Yeah.
It's no Comic Sans, it's no Papyrus because it's actually good. Now,
he didn't do Avatar.
No, he did not. He did not. But if you're a fan of Stranger Things and you know that logo as I'm saying that phrase, that typeface is Benguiat. So you're welcome, everybody. You do know what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think the original was glowing red neon, though, against a black background.
Yeah. And you know what? You just helped me to connect another thread doing a little design archaeology here because I was looking up some of his typefaces as you were going through those. And for the life of me, I could not find who designed the Foxy Brown poster or logo. And you remember me saying how beautiful I thought it was. Well, if you look up Tiffany Heavy with Swash, there's Foxy Brown right there embedded in that. So Ed had to have done it.
Oh, that's great. I love it, man. We just closed the circle.
Yeah, we did. Like we could put this on Wikipedia because it is nowhere. It is uncredited everywhere. So thank you for helping me close that circle.
Okay. Do you want me to help you edit Wikipedia too?
No, I'm not going to do it. We both know that.
Looks like I'm doing that again.
Yeah. But dude, man, lots of huge talent behind both of these posters.
And in these movies. I mean, some of these actors had humble beginnings, and they later became major stars.
Yeah, it just goes to show you that everyone has to start someplace, right?
You know, you're exactly right. My suggestion, you can start by getting the bartender's attention for our next round.
Or I can get Foxy Brown to shake you down for half the tab.
Foxy Brown is half the tab, Todd. I've been ordering them for the last few hours. Hey, you can't blame me. It was your idea.
Oh, man. See you next time, everyone. Thanks, Elliot.